Hello and welcome back to another Eduonics tutorial. In this section, we'll be going over the different tools in Photoshop, and in this video, we'll be picking up where we left off in the creation tools. The next creation tool I'll be going over is the gradient tool. It's located directly below the eraser tool in the tools panel. The gradient tool allows you to sample two or more colors and stretch whatever colors would fall between them. I'll show you what I mean by setting my foreground color to red and my background color to blue. Then I will click and drag a horizontal line on the canvas. The longer the line, the longer the transition will be between my two colors. So I could drag a very short line for a tight transition, or a very long line for a more gradual transition. Now that I've made my gradient, it has filled all available space on my canvas. On the far left, there's my pure red that I chose, and on the right, there's my blue. But the beauty of the gradient tool is this space in between. You can see that Photoshop has automatically faded the colors together and resulted in this nice purple in the middle. If we go up to the tool options, we can see that the gradient tool has presets as well, all with different combinations of colors. And clicking the gear wheel will bring up entire sets of them, just like with the brush tool. On top of that, the gradient tool can be laid in different shapes. If you pay attention to these buttons on the right, we can switch from a linear gradient to a radial gradient, to an angle gradient, to a reflected gradient, to a diamond gradient. You can actually customize your gradient before you lay it by clicking the gradient thumbnail in the tool options above. We can control the transparency of our gradient by using these opacity tabs on top. We can also add multiple colors to our gradient by adding some tabs on bottom. I'm going to make 3 tabs of red. Then I'll add 2 tabs of blue between them. Once I'm satisfied with my gradient, I can save all my changes by clicking the New button, then clicking OK to exit the gradient editor. And now I can use my new gradient on this image and in future projects. I'm going to go back into the tool options and select Linear Gradient. Then I'm going to click and drag horizontally back onto my canvas. The next tool I'll be going over is the Paint Bucket tool. I'll go back to the Tools panel and right-click the Gradient tool to reveal the flyout menu. Then I'll select the Paint Bucket tool. The Paint Bucket tool works a lot like the Magic Wand tool and the Magic Eraser tool, except it doesn't select areas or erase them. It simply replaces a certain range of colors with the color of your choosing. It's probably best used for changing the color of large, simple areas. I'm going to go to my foreground color in the Tools panel and change it to something like green. Then, if I click here in the blue, the Paint Bucket tool has filled some of this blue with green. You can see, though, that it's not quite filling all of the blue with green. The tool seems to be ignoring the areas on the sides where the colors begin to transition. This is because our Paint Bucket tool is only set to tolerate or affect a certain range of colors. Fortunately for us, that range can be easily adjusted. Up here in the tool options, I'm going to go over to Tolerance. It's currently set to 32, which means it's affecting up to 32 instances of color beyond the first one that we click. I'm going to go ahead and bring this all the way up to 200. Then I'll click in this other bar of blue on the right. You can now see that the tool is affecting a much broader range of color. If we go back up in the tool options, we can see that there's a few more buttons to the right of our tolerance box. I'm going to focus on this box here called Contiguous. Right now, the tool is affecting 200 instances of color beyond the color we click. But it's not going to affect that same color if it's all the way over here. This is where the contiguous option comes in. If I uncheck the contiguous button, then click in the red again, you can see that it affects all the reds on the canvas, even though there's other colors separating them. There's a few tools that utilize this contiguous function, and I did already go over the basics of it. I just wanted to take this opportunity to help visualize the concept a little bit better. I'm going to recheck contiguous so we can go back to the way it used to be. In addition to painting in colors, the paint bucket tool can also paint in patterns. I'm going to go up to the tool options and click the button that says foreground. Then I'm going to change it to pattern. This activates a thumbnail directly to the right. This is the pattern picker. I'll click this to pull up my patterns, and then I'll click one. Now I can click in these green areas to apply different patterns, one at a time. So you can see that the paint bucket tool isn't very precise, but it is very easy to use and it does get the job done. The next creation tool I'll go over is an absolute essential in graphic design. I'm going to go further down in the Tools panel, past the Pen tool, which I'll cover in another video, and I'll select the horizontal Type tool. The Type tools are what you use in Photoshop to add text of any kind. I'm going to show you the basics of how to start using the Type tool so you can include words and text into your documents. First though, I'm going to clean up our canvas by filling it with white. To do that, I'm going to use a keyboard shortcut. I'll go ahead and hit Shift and F5 on my keyboard at the same time to bring up my fill window. Again, that's Shift F5. Then I'll click the Use option to select white, and then I'll click OK. Now that my layer is filled with white, I'll click with my Type tool in the canvas to begin a new line of text. I'm just going to type tutorial. Right now, the text is green because it's following my current foreground color. I'll show you how to change the color later on. Now, since Photoshop has so many keyboard shortcuts, you have to commit the text that you've typed before moving on. Otherwise, Photoshop wouldn't be able to tell whether you're trying to add text or use a keyboard shortcut. So to commit this text, I'll just go up to the tool options and click the check mark all the way on the right. The first option we have in the tool options is for the font of the text. There are many different fonts that you can install on your computer, and Photoshop lets you use practically all of them. To choose a font in Photoshop, just click this tiny arrow and all of your fonts will be listed in this little box. From here, you can either scroll around until you find your font, or if you happen to know the exact font that you want to use, you can just start typing it while the box is open, and it will begin to narrow your font names to what you're typing. So for instance, if I wanted Times New Roman, I'll just start by typing Times. And there it is. I'll click it to change my font to Times New Roman. The next option we have is the Style option. If I click here in this box that says Regular, it pulls up a few different options. From here, I could change my font to italic, bold, or italic and bold. The next option we have is the font size. It's currently set to 60 points, but we could change it to whatever we like. Next up is the anti-aliasing option. Anti-aliasing is an effect that can be applied to pixel-based objects to make them look smoother. And from here, it can be changed to none, so we can just see the pure text without any extra smoothing or anything. From there, we do have multiple options that will add to our current text to make it appear sharp, crisp, strong, or smooth. Next up, we have the paragraph alignment. Now this is something that affects all text, whether it's in a full paragraph or not. To better illustrate how this works, I'm going to click my text with the Type tool to add to my text. I'm going to make a new line at the end of my tutorial text by going to the end and hitting the Enter key. On this new line, I'm going to type on. Then I'll hit Enter again. Then I'll write type. And finally, I'll go back up to the tool options and hit the check mark to commit my type. Then I'll just switch to my Move tool to move this near the center of the canvas. Now I'll select my Type tool again to bring up the tool options for this text again. As I was saying earlier, these buttons control the paragraph alignment of my text. It's currently set to left alignment. If I click the one in the middle, it will completely center my text for middle alignment. And if I go up and hit the right alignment button, it will align all my text to the right. You probably guessed it by now, but this color box here represents the color of your type. By default, type will draw from your current foreground color. But if you want to change it after the fact, you can just switch it from here. Finally, probably the most important button on these tool options is the last one. When I click it, it brings up the character and paragraph panels. These take the basic options of the Type tool and expand on them, so you can virtually customize everything about your type. It's a little complicated for now, but you get the basic idea. Back in the Tools panel, if I right-click my Type tool, you can see that there's a few more type tools that we can choose from. They all follow pretty much the same rules, so I'm not going to go into them in this tutorial. But please, feel free to play around with all the type tools, and we'll continue the creation tools in the next video.